You're listening to New Churches Podcast, a production of Send Network on newchurches.com. We discuss all things church planting. If you're looking to take your next step toward multiplication, you're in the right place. Newchurches.com provides relevant and reliable resources for church planters, church multipliers, and disciple makers. Our growing library features pastors, planters, and church leaders like Ed Stetzer, David Platt, Trillia Newbell, Christine Hoover, Dahadi Lewis, Trevin Wax, and many others.
Welcome to another episode of the New Churches Podcast. I'm Jeff Metters, Director of Theology and Content for Send Network. Today, Tony Merida and I will be discussing Christ-centered conflict resolution, a much-needed topic for new churches and for planters and pastors all around the world. You all know Tony as a co-host of this podcast, but Tony is also the founding pastor of Imago Dei Church there in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he's the vice president for planter development for Send Network and a board member of the Gospel Coalition. He's the author of a number of books that are so helpful, The Christ-Centered Expositor, Ordinary, Orphanology, and many more. He and his wife, Kimberly, have 5 kids. And today we're going to be talking about one of Tony's really important books and really an important topic that we need to discuss, Christ-Centered Conflict Resolution. Tony, every church planter, every pastor has to deal with conflict, and it affects us. It affects everyone and can easily derail the work and the work of the church. And one of the things that I've noticed amongst pastors, and maybe you can speak to this too, is that it's very easy to show up to the, for lack of a better term, it's easy to show up to the positive, fun sides of ministry, leading, preaching, discipleship, counseling. It's harder to show up for the negative, more challenging sides of ministry, the church discipline meeting, the conflict resolution meeting. But great leaders, faithful and effective leaders, they have to show up for both. Mm-hmm. And the guys that only show up for one will not serve their church well. And so conflict resolution is something we need to get right. Why do you think, Tony, that pastors sometimes are slow to engage in conflict resolution, are maybe even avoid it altogether?
Yeah, I mean, there are several reasons for that. With different personalities, different interests. For example, some can envision the Christian life as being a very, doctrinal focus, head-oriented, right? And when in reality, ministry is it's doctrine embodied work. It's relational work. It's people work. And there's a difference in, let's say, teaching theology in a formal academic sense, even though you're not going to be removed from conflict there either. But it's a lot more intense, I think, in a local church, which is heavily relational. And in a church planting situation, you have conflict immediately. You'll have it in your core team. You'll have it in your house. There is no avoiding conflict. And as the church grows, there's conflict. I mean, our church right now, we're, thinking through. We're out of space. We need another service. We've got. We're sending guys out to plant churches. There's all sorts of things. It's always growing, and it's never static. It's always dynamic, and there are always fires to put out. So the question is not like, will you have conflict, but how are you going to deal with it appropriately in a way that's Christ honoring? How can you deal with it without dreading it, without just despising it? I think it's important to know where it comes from theologically, and then to have some good practical skills in addressing it, and then just not viewing it negatively all the time. I think I understand why people feel that way about conflict, but in some ways, conflict is an opportunity. And so we can talk about any of those things.
Yeah, I think one thing you said is so important, and I think it's for guys to thread out that when conflict does happen, it's not an immediate commentary on you're a bad leader, you're a bad human being, or whatever. Like, this is the human experience. Our doctrine of sin, I mean, we're 2 pages into the Bible and we have conflict. Yeah. And then we have the murder. I mean, it is a full steam ahead conflict from Genesis to Revelation with it. And then you go even amongst the church. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
Paul and John Mark over
Mhm.
and Barnabas over some relational dynamics, and then Paul and Peter over some doctrinal and relational dynamics. You've got Jerusalem Council. I mean, there are Corinth. You got, I mean, Paul is just, he's,
Lawsuits among believers in
oh my
Corinth.
goodness. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. I mean,
the overlooking the Greek-speaking widows, Acts 6. It's everywhere.
yeah. Yeah. So there are so many expectations, unmet expectations, miscommunications that are just ripe to bring conflict about in the church. And so any planter that, if you're experiencing now, maybe it's among your leadership team or your staff team or with a small group leader, just know that, hey, this is to be expected. This is normal. It's kind of like when you bring a baby home from the hospital and you're like, are they supposed to make that noise? Are shouldn't they be making this noise when that happens? And the doctor tells you, no, this is all part of it.
Yeah.
Like, you're okay. And this is all part of it. But we do need to step up and lead. And so, Tony, the book and some of the principles you talk about, you just alluded to it, is Christ-centered conflict resolution.
hmm
And why is that an important distinction? Why not just say conflict resolution? But why? What are the alternatives people drift into other than a Christ-centered conflict resolution?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people want to do is avoid conflict. They want to deal with it in a way that's not gospel-centered, gospel-driven. And I think you're gonna swing and miss a lot if you don't know kind of the theological underpinnings of this subject and how Christ is the solution for genuine unity and harmony and reconciliation and peace. Theologically, we believe that the doctrine of sin, coming from the fall, as you mentioned early on in the pages of Genesis, there's a promise that the man and woman will be in conflict. And then in chapter 4, there's a murder. And then we know the story of Noah and all of the drama that unfolded there. Before the fall, there was no need for a book on conflict resolution.
Right.
Everybody's happy and in the garden. And we long to get back to the garden. And one of the things that makes the new creation uh, 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 wonderful in our imagination, and why we anticipate it so much, is that there's going to be total shalom. There's going to be total
Mm.
peace again. The lion and the lamb playing together. No more animosity. No more conflict. And Jesus came into the world as the reconciler to not only reconcile us to the Father, because we are at war with Him. We are at war with God in our sinful nature, but also to reconcile us to one another. And so Jesus is the great mediator. He is the great reconciler. He's the one that brings us peace, as He is the Prince of Peace. And I think if you try to deal with conflict without thinking about sin and repentance and gospel, you just I don't think you get the results that
Yeah.
that were offered in the gospel. It was Plantinga that said, "Sin is the vandalism of shalom."
Mm.
So one of the things that sin does is it breaks peace, and so we need to deal with the problem with the proper solution. So yeah, I think we have to look to the one that was promised in Genesis 3:15. He's going to come and crush the head of the serpent. Paul, I think, is picking up on that echo in Romans, at the end of Romans, when he says the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. So yeah, we need Jesus in our conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. You're so right, because there are ways we can go about smoothing things out without actually resolving anything.
hmm
And the gospel affords us what we need for true. Like, we have categories, as you mentioned, we have categories for sin. How do we handle
hmm
sin? We have categories. How do we handle disagreement? Like when Paul says to the Colossians to bear with one another and forgive one another.
hmm
I think there are some leaders who everything's a sin.
hmm
They view disagreement as a sin. I'm like, no, it's just disagreement. They view any kind of slight of disagreement of opinion. They treat that like it's a sin. Well,
hmm
that's overbearing, domineering, unbiblical. Paul gives us two categories. There are things that we bear with and things that we need to forgive.
Yeah.
And sometimes those both need conflict resolution. One, you got to bear with it, talk it out. Hey, we just disagree. It's okay. We'll move forward. We'll go this way, whatever it may be. But then with actual sin, okay, then now let's work through the gospel. Let's be Christians. Let's exhort one another, encourage one another, love one another, and appeal to the work, person and work of Christ here. But there are, when Paul tells us to, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with one another. I know there are pastors that struggle with fear of man and will never enter into that conflict resolution. For pastors that struggle with that, Tony, what would you tell them who they really do struggle with? They don't want to upset people. They just want everybody to get along. They don't want to enter into the fray of the resolving conflict. What word of encouragement would you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, I sympathize with anyone that's honest enough to admit that they don't like to do conflict resolution. Like it's not, but it is part of our work as leaders. And when Paul says, be eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace, there's a work that's involved there. And that's a work for every Christian to do, as Paul's writing to the whole church. But I think it's up to pastors to lead by example and to pursue this path of peace. I'm reminded of one of the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. I think about that verse a lot on this subject. Like, of all the things that could be said that would make you reflect the nature of the Father, it's that you're a peacemaker. And as you think about the current climate in which we are, just broader in the culture, man, you want to stand out in the culture, become a peacemaker, become one that really desires to work through conflict. And as I said at the top, I mean, this is an opportunity. Sometimes we have conflict because we are at fault as leaders, maybe because of sin, maybe just because of weakness. In Acts 6, it was largely because the church just outgrew its leadership structure, and they had to make some changes. And they grew from that. The church was blessed because of that conflict as a result. So I think a lot of times when people have something against me or something I've said or something like that, like I can grow from it. But sometimes it's the person that I'm meeting with. They also have opportunity to grow. It's a time for self-examination when we're doing conflict resolution. And that's why Jesus says, take out the log in your eye before you notice the speck in your brother. Like, it's okay to find that speck, but you need to first, examine your own heart. And to ask probing questions. David Pallison once wrote on James chapter 4, when James says, what causes quarrels among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? And he said, cravings underlie conflicts. Now, that's what James is communicating here. Like, what causes the fights? There's something that you want that you're not getting, that your passions are at war within you. And so, conflict is a great time to press in on our heart and ask the question, what am I craving? Is there something that's becoming an idol in my life, or something that I'm looking to, more than I should, that kind of thing. And so, it's a great time to grow. Are you really loving your enemies? Is this an offense that's not sin that you should just overlook? There's a category for that, right, in the scriptures, that love covers a multitude of sins, or the proverb that says it's the king's glory to overlook an offense. There's certain things that we have to overlook. So again, back to your original question, as a leader, it's our responsibility to model this, to lead out in it. And to be open enough to receive correction ourselves when sometimes the complaints are against us. And again, it's not always a sinful accusation. It could be just like, why aren't we doing this? And it's like, oh yeah, you're probably right. We should do that.
Yeah, that's good. We as pastors, it's very easy to think about, okay, I need God's Spirit to help me preach the sermon. I need God's Spirit to help with XYZ. And I think sometimes we can forget, like, oh, I need God's Spirit to help me in this conflict resolution.
Yeah. The way I like to say it, man, is you have to be comfortable having awkward conversations with people. And we use that language a lot at our church. Like, we want to be a church that has awkward conversations. So if there's an issue, go have an awkward conversation about it. And what I've learned is like Jesus shows up a lot in those awkward conversations because he loves it when his people are trying to be united and be together. We just want to make that part of our ministry, even though it can be challenging at times.
Yeah. How would you counsel the pastors and planters that are listening that really do need to balance the pastoral care aspect with the need for resolution when conflicts arise among congregants, church members, or even staff? They got all these levels of leadership and responsibility and authority. And so how can pastors, really walk in that balance of finding resolution in these areas?
Well, I think again, this go back to Ephesians 4 a little bit later when Paul says that we're equipping the saints to do work of ministry. We can't be the ones that do all of the conflict resolution in a church unless we have a very small church. We need to be equipping the church in this area, giving them resources, teaching on the subject. And then, equipping kind of the next level leaders, if you will. Maybe that's your small group leaders or your Sunday school teachers or whatever it is to be able to to teach them to be assertive when conflicts are arising and to go and be a mediator, and deal with these sorts of things. So, I would just put this under the category of let's learn how we can equip our people to be good peacemakers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so helpful. It reminds me of Moses when Moses is trying to do it all for the thousands and thousands and thousands of
Can you
of
imagine?
talk about burnout. I mean, he must have been so frazzled.
Yeah.
Just to where his father-in-law is like, "Moses, you look awful." You can just see it all over his face. And you're so right, Tom. I mean, God has given the body of Christ that they're just in the same way, like our bodies are they heal themselves at times. They scab up, the white blood cells, vitamins, all that kinds of stuff. That the body of Christ also, we need to empower it for more self-healing of members caring for one another, rebuking, encouraging, exhorting, challenging, helping one another. We need that more in the body of Christ.
Yeah, I think about Philippians 4. You mentioned this, I think, on another podcast. But Yodia and Syntyche are at odds with each other. And Paul says, whoever this person is, I ask you also, true companion, help these women who have labored side by side with me in the gospel together with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers whose names are in the book of life. So he's asking this true companion to help them to agree in the Lord. And he says, hey, you guys are Christians. Your names are in the book of life. I think we can figure this out. Get together and agree in the Lord, which probably means that you're not going to agree on all the details, whatever this conflict was, but there's a sense in which we can come to a good place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the scriptures, so many things keep coming to mind. You mentioned earlier, we're going to judge angels. What is going on with that?
Yeah.
We don't have time for that. Maybe we can do another episode on some of these wild things that
I love how Paul, that was one of those, like, he just sort of a throwaway phrase. Don't you guys know we're going to judge angels? And he moves on and we're kind of like, no, we don't know that. Can you articulate
back
that for
up?
us?
Yeah. Can you do that again, Paul? We're going to what? I mean, it's just incredible to think of the gifts that we now have in the Spirit to really help walk in harmony, to far as it depends on us, live at peace with everyone. And as Hebrews says, to strive for peace, to strive for these things together. And so I guess one question as we kind of get near the end here is to think about, what does reconciliation and restoration look like in the context of Christ-centered conflict resolution? Like, I guess, what are the flavors? What are the contours of this is what Christ-centered conflict resolution looks like in the meeting, post-meeting, a month later when you see each other in the hallway or in small group? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, I think it can look like a number of things. Maybe this will be helpful. In the book, I have 5 M's alliterated, 5 M's for being a peacemaker rather than what I call a peace breaker or peace faker.
So peace faker.
The first M is me first, that I need to ask the question, is there a log in my eye? And so this could be the person that's got something against another person. Like, make sure you're checking your own heart. Do that James 4 work. Is there a passion at war within me that's causing me to fight like this? So me first. The second M is minor. Cannot overlook this offense. And I think there are various things that we can overlook. If this act was done unintentionally, or was this an isolated act, not a pattern? Was it insignificant? Was it not technically sinful? Did it not harm the witness of the church? Was it just a matter of personal preference? There are a lot of things that we need to be merciful and take a posture of overlooking. The third M is major. Does this offense require the process of restoration? And here you may need to go down the line of Matthew 18. This is kind of Galatians 6, restoring the wayward in a spirit of gentleness. But this is offense that is dishonoring to God. It's damaging your relationship. It's hurting others. It has to be dealt with, and this may take a while. This may require a number of meetings. So is it major? Fourth is material. Does this offense require restitution related to property or money or other rights? Because sometimes you need more than just I forgive you or an apology, but you need Zacchaeus. He's going to go and pay back all that he owed those people and more. So we need real practical action sometimes to bring about peace. And then the fifth M is mediation. Does this offense require assisted peacemaking? Unfortunately, we've got a lot of people in the church world that can do this sort of mediation. It may just be your pastor, though. It could, or a good friend. But you may be at odds with someone, and you don't feel comfortable dealing with this person to person. You feel like you need a third party, and I would encourage you to do that if you're in that situation. Those are the things we're trying to do to be peacemakers. We know in this fallen world we'll still not have this right all the time.
Yeah,
that we're never going to get to the end of this angst, and I think that angst is actually pushing us to new creation and showing us part of the hope that is ours to come.
Yeah. It's so helpful, Tony, and it's something that we need. I think it's an important aspect of leadership that church planters and pastors, as I said at the top of the show, it's not the fun part. It's not the preaching, the teaching, the all that kind of stuff that's so life-giving in some ways and exciting. This is the challenge, and as leaders, we need to step up. And in the power of Christ, that Christ-centered conflict resolution is being done in His power. In His character. Jesus had no problem asking a bold question, had no problem stepping in and speaking the truth in love. And that's definitely what we need to pursue. Thank you for listening to the New Churches podcast, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the New Churches podcast, brought to you by Send Network. If you like what you heard, take a few minutes to rate and review us or share this episode with a friend. It's the best way to show your support. To find more reliable resources to start your new church well, visit newchurches.com.